Hello, Void. How you doing? So, I'm dipping back into one of my favorite eras of horror films. Mediocre, early 2000s ghost flicks. There are a lot of them, and for some reason they just hold that special place in my heart. They're not particularly good by any means. In fact, that most of them are fairly middle of the road. But there's something just oddly comforting about them. I wouldn't call them a guilty pleasure so much as just they're almost relaxing in how I don't know. It hits a weird sweet spot for me. And here's one that, well, Fear.com. Okay. 2002 Fear.com it's a mess. Mostly because it seems to be two movies that just seem to be happening side by side, and then just do all they can to tie together at the end. Okay. So, and yes, the Fear.com is written like that because they could not secure the rights to just Fear.com. To the point where the in-movie website is actually Fear.com.com. And that became the official website for the movie. Because the person who owned the regular Fear.com, wasn't selling at any price. So, the movie just ran with it. And honestly, I don't know why, because the thing being called Fear.com has nothing to do with anything. Okay, so there's two movies going on this. The first is The Ring. The second is Seven. Odd mix, but you Frankenstein those two movies together and you get Fear.com. Okay, so in The Ring, we have a ghost killing off people who view her website. How the ghost got a website, I don't know. But it's not the first time. I already reviewed the movie Orong, which had a ghost having a website, so it's not uncommon. Though I think she made her website and then possessed it later. This one is just a weird torture website. Okay, so movie A is Ghost. So she's a hemophiliac girl who was kidnapped by a killer, tortured to death, and then now haunts the internet, I guess. Because she was killed on camera for the internet. Anyway, so anyone who views her site dies 2 days later. Though she is kind of pretty much saying to find me. I mean, that doesn't really help them actually do, but hey. So pretty much you see like a kinky version of her saying, "Do you like to watch?" And essentially baiting the people to follow her before killing them with their biggest fears that they start manifesting. Now, it's a stretch for what those fears are, as the first guy gets pretty much electrocuted by, he almost hit by a train. He's a computer guy, was he afraid of being electrocuted? Never address it. I mean, we got the lady who's afraid of bugs, sure. The guy who was afraid of car crashes. They actually say that was a big fear of him, but they never telegraphed that before. Anyway, so we have hemophilia ghost girl that keeps manifesting as a little girl for some reason. I mean, she seems to have three forms: the dominatrix for the website, then the little girl, and then her form where she looks like when she dies, which is kind of the thing that's going on here on the cover. I think she only does the little girl thing just to give the people a clue when they start investigating it. Meanwhile, in movie B, there's a killer that is running a torture website that he abducts people, kills them then tortures them until they beg for death on camera, just to get his subscriber count up, and then goes through just calling himself the Doctor. Now, he's the one who killed Ghost Girl, so there is a link, but they don't really explore that link until close to the end. So, essentially, occasionally you're just watching a ghost film, but then they'll just cut to this guy torturing a woman. Just talking to her, like, clinically about intimacy and all these things while watching his subscriber count go up. Now, at first you think his website is the Fear.com one, but no, he has his other one, another name, I can't quite recall it. It was like Living Furniture or something like that. But, essentially the Fear.com site is what the police stumble across that seems to be causing these other murders. I will say this movie's... They have the most terrifying looking search engine. This was early 2000s, so people really didn't get how computers worked still, I guess. And pretty much the search engine looks utterly terrifying, so the web browsing in it is weird looking. So, essentially the main characters are trying to lead the ghost girl back to her killer so she can kill him, I guess. Why she can't just do that before since he's chilling on the website. I guess her rules are he has to see her site before she can do anything. But given the people 2 days, it's like, how is that going to be enough time for anyone to do anything? Okay. So, yeah. The effects in this are not great. Nothing in this movie is great. It does still hit that weird sweet spot for me, but the movie makes no goddamn sense. They're trying to cram so many things into there, like she's a hemophiliac, so she being tortured with knives was clearly going to be her biggest fear. Yet she seemed to keep her alive for 2 days despite that condition, so I guess he was treating her to keep her alive longer. It doesn't really go into it. Also, one of the places she played was this, abandoned, where her body was sitting was, this abandoned silo-looking, or construction thing. It's like, how does a hemophiliac girl play in a place that's covered in rust and knives and sharp things? It's like, movie, you're making choices. They don't add up. The ghost design is fine, but relatively uninspired. And, both movies want to be interesting, and they got the potential to be. But because they're fighting with each other for screen time, it never really goes. The Doctor Killer, it seemed to be almost something out of, an early version of Untraceable, which wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't great, but... So there's, I guess, early Saw kind of... but meets Ghost. And they just aren't gelling. Because the two just have nothing to... one caused the other, but they just never interact throughout it, so it does feel like two very different plot lines. And nothing about the movie stands out, really, other than the fact that it is so garbled. So, it's a 3 MacGuffin film. I have a soft spot for it, and I will kick it up every once in a while, because it does... For me, I find it entertaining, but I understand why most people do not like this movie. It was never a good film, and was never going to be. Okay, that's about all on Fear.com. I've talked longer than this movie than probably anyone has in the past 20 years, so there's decent incentive for it, I guess. See you later, Void.